Welcome to Inside Vietnam. I'm your host, and today we're sharing a story that's going to hit different than most. This is Dale Hutchins, 51 years old, union electrician from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. 27 years pulling wire, building a life that was supposed to mean something. Then it all came apart. Dale came to Vietnam looking for a fresh start, and what he found changed everything. He thought he knew the difference between real and fake, between love and business. He was wrong. This one's gonna stick with you. Here's his story, in his own words. Look, I'm not the kind of guy who tells stories about himself. Spent my whole life fixing things other people broke, keeping my head down, doing the work. But maybe that's part of the problem right there. Maybe if I'd learned to actually talk instead of just troubleshoot, I wouldn't be sitting here in this Hoyan apartment telling you how I lost damn near everything twice, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. That's where I'm from. Good Union Town, IBW. Local 405. Proud of it. Started my apprenticeship at 19, got my journeyman card at 23, spent the next 27 years crawling through attics in August heat and January freeze, pulling wire, running conduit, making sure people's lights came on when they flipped the switch. It was honest work, good money, the kind of career that's supposed to build something solid. I met Susan my senior year at Jefferson High School, homecoming queen type, way out of my league, but somehow we clicked. Got married at 22, bought our first house at 25, had Ashley a year later, Brandon 2 years after that. Built a life in Marion, just outside Cedar Rapids. Nice neighborhood, good schools, the kind of place where you know your neighbors and your kids ride bikes in the street until dark. Weekends were Home Depot runs and Iowa Hawkeyes games. I'd drink Busch Light with the guys, watch football, fix whatever needed, fixing around the house. Susan handled the kids, the social calendar, made sure we showed up at the right birthday parties and school events. It worked, or I thought it worked. That's the thing about electrical work. You learn to test your assumptions, verify your connections. But I never tested that one. The erosion happened slow. Started noticing it maybe 10 years in. Susan stopped laughing at my jokes, started rolling her eyes when I'd explain how I solved some tricky three-way switch problem at work. We'd sit at dinner and have nothing to say to each other except logistics about the kids. I'd finish eating, grab another beer, head down to the basement workshop. Easier than sitting in that silence. She'd say I was emotionally unavailable. I'd say she didn't appreciate what I did for the family. Round and round. The kids grew up, moved out. Ashley went to Iowa State. Brandon got a job in Des Moines. Suddenly, it was just me and Susan in that house we'd built together. And we had nothing left to talk about except who forgot to take out the trash. I threw myself into work. Took every overtime shift I could get. Union pension was building nice, thinking about early retirement, maybe at 55, doing some side jobs, finally taking it easy. My knee was getting bad, old injury from a fall off a ladder back in '09, but you push through. That's what you do. Susan filed in August 2020. Blindsided me completely. Her lawyer was vicious, framed me as neglectful, borderline alcoholic, because I drank beer on weekends like every other guy I knew. She told Ashley and Brandon I was emotionally absent, that living with me was like living alone. The kids took her side, wouldn't even hear my perspective. That hurt worse than losing the house. And I did lose the house. The one we'd built in Marion, the one I'd wired myself, top to bottom, every outlet and fixture. Gone. She got it in the settlement. Got my F-150 too, the truck I'd had for 12 years. Got half my pension. The lawyer explained it all very patiently, like I was stupid. Community property. No fault divorce, just sign here. Then my knee gave out for real. November 2021, up in an attic running wire for a remodel job, stepped wrong on a joist and my leg just buckled. Herniated disc, nerve damage, the whole 9 yards. Couldn't work for months. Workers' comp covered it, and the union negotiated a settlement with the contractor's insurance. Between that and the early retirement buyout they offered when they realized I wasn't coming back at full capacity, I walked away with $95,000. Blood money. That's what it felt like. Sitting in a shitty one-bedroom apartment in Cedar Rapids, 51 years old, bad knee. Kids won't return my calls, 95 grand in the bank and a reduced pension that barely covered Iowa rent and living expenses. Everything I'd worked for, gone. Everything I'd built, dismantled. And I couldn't even blame anyone but myself because apparently I'd been the problem all along. That's when Rick showed me the videos. Rick Torres, another IBEW guy. Good brother. We'd grab beers sometimes, commiserate about our divorces. His was just as ugly as mine. One night at the bar, he pulls out his phone, shows me these YouTube channels. Guys living in Southeast Asia, places like Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines. Living good on modest money, nice apartments, beautiful weather, beaches, good food. And women, younger women, who supposedly still appreciated traditional men who worked hard and provided. I started watching those channels obsessively. Sitting in my apartment, drinking Busch Light, watching guys my age or older, walking around these tropical cities, eating street food, smiling for the first time in years. They talked about how far the dollar stretched, how you could live like a king on a pension, how Asian women valued stability and maturity over flash and games. I know how it sounds. I'm not stupid. I'd heard the warnings about sex tourism, about scams, about desperate old guys getting taken advantage of. But these channels weren't like that, or so I told myself. These were guys building real relationships, finding partners who appreciated them, starting over somewhere. The mistakes of the past didn't matter. Vietnam kept coming up. Not Thailand, which had that reputation, not Philippines, which looked too poor, too desperate. Vietnam had this mix of development and affordability, culture and opportunity. Da Nang especially. Beaches, modern city, expat community, but still authentic. I watched hours of walking tours, cost of living breakdowns, relationship advice from guys who'd been there 5-10 years. Late December 2022, I bought a one-way ticket to Da Nang, departure date, January 7th, 2023. Told myself it was just to clear my head, maybe 6 months, see what it was like. Ashley and Brandon didn't respond to my message telling them I was going. Susan probably told them I was running away to chase Asian girls. Maybe she was right. I don't know. What I know is I was 51, alone, broken, sitting on $95,000 and absolutely no idea what came next. Vietnam felt like possibility, like maybe I could be someone different there. Someone who worked, someone who mattered. Maybe I could find a woman who wouldn't look at me like I was a disappointing appliance that stopped working right. I packed 2 suitcases, locked up the apartment, drove to O'Hare in my rental car since Susan had my truck, sat at the gate drinking overpriced airport beer, watching families and couples board the plane, wondering what the hell I was doing. But I got on that plane. And everything that happened next, well, that's on me. Can't blame Susan, can't blame Rick, can't blame YouTube. I made the choice. I was looking for something Vietnam couldn't give me, something nobody could give me except myself. Took me $47,000 to figure that out. The plane landed in Da Nang around 11 p.m. on January 8th, 20-some hours of travel. 2 connections, my knee screaming the whole way. Stepped out into that tropical air, and it hit me like opening an oven door. Humidity you could swim through, even at night. 80 degrees in January. Back in Cedar Rapids, it was probably 15 below. Immigration was chaos I wasn't prepared for. Lines everywhere, signs in Vietnamese I couldn't read, officials barking instructions I didn't understand. Got my visa on arrival after 45 minutes of standing on the bad knee, paid my $50, got stamped through. Grabbed my bags, walked out into the arrivals hall, and that's when Vietnam really announced itself. The noise first. Hundreds of people shouting, motorbikes revving right there inside the building somehow, taxi drivers grabbing at my arm. The smell of exhaust and fish sauce, and something sweet I couldn't identify. I'm standing there jet-lagged and overwhelmed, trying to remember the name of the hotel I'd booked, and this kid, maybe 20 years old, keeps saying, "Taxi, taxi. You need taxi, sir, where you go." Ended up paying way too much for the ride, found out later. Didn't matter. Sat in the back of that beat-up Toyota, watching Da Nang slide past the windows. Wide boulevards, modern buildings mixed with old colonial stuff, motorbikes everywhere like schools of fish. 3 in the morning, and the streets were still alive. People eating at plastic tables on sidewalks, drinking beer, laughing. Nobody seemed to sleep here. The hotel was near My Cay Beach, cheap place I'd found online for $20 a night. Clerk spoke enough English to check me in, handed me a key to a room on the 4th floor, no elevator. I hauled my bags up those stairs, knee protesting every step, unlocked the door to a box with a bed, a fan, a bathroom the size of a closet. Fell asleep in my clothes with the fan blasting hot air around. That first week was disorientation and banh mi. I'd wake up not knowing where I was, check my phone, remember. Walk down to the beach where vendors sold French bread sandwiches for 30,000 dong, about $1.25. Sit on the sand, drinking Vietnamese coffee so strong and sweet it made my teeth hurt. Watching the South China Sea roll in, wondering what the hell I was doing here. The heat was relentless. The humidity made my knee ache worse than Iowa winter. I'd shower, step outside, be soaked in sweat within 5 minutes. But there was something about it. The slowness. Nobody rushing. People sitting on those little plastic stools drinking kapaswada at 10 in the morning, at 3 in the afternoon, at midnight. Time moved different here. I found the expat Facebook groups. Da Nang expats, Vietnam expat community, all these guys posting about visa runs and apartment rentals and where to get Western food. Started going to the bars they mentioned. Little places along Bok Dang Street where you'd find Australians and Brits and Americans. All of us running from something, none of us saying it out loud. Met a guy named Tony from Perth the third night. 60 years old, been in Vietnam 5 years, married to a woman 30 years younger. We're drinking Tiger beer, and he's telling me the rules. Don't trust the bar girls, don't flash money around, get a good visa agent, learn some basic Vietnamese, always negotiate taxi prices before you get in. But then he leans in, lowers his voice. The good ones are out there, mate. Vietnamese women who want a real partnership. Just gotta be smart about it. Another guy, Frank from Texas, divorced like me. Brother, I'm telling you, it's different here. These women appreciate what we bring to the table. Not like back home where you're just an ATM with a pulse. He's got photos on his phone of his girlfriend, maybe 25, gorgeous, says he sends money to her family, helps with her sister's education. That's what men do, he says. We provide. They appreciate it. I'm listening to all this, drinking cheap beer, wanting to believe it. Wanting to think maybe the YouTube guys were right. Maybe this was the reset I needed. Week 2, I found an apartment. Service studio near Thuong Beach, $450 a month, including utilities and cleaning twice a week, nicer than my place in Cedar Rapids, and a third the cost. Had a little balcony where I could sit and watch the motorbikes flow past like a river of metal and exhaust. Started establishing routines, morning walk along the beach, knee willing. Coffee at one of the local places, not the tourist spots. Afternoon, I'd sit at the apartment, watch Vietnamese TV I didn't understand, scroll through Facebook. Evenings back to the expat bars, drinking with guys whose stories all sounded like mine. Divorce. Kids who wouldn't call. Savings that were supposed to last longer back home. The feeling of starting over at an age when you're supposed to be settled. The warnings kept coming. Don't date bar girls. Don't send money to family too quick. Don't believe sob stories. Don't let them move in right away. But always followed by, but the good ones exist. Just gotta be careful. Like we were all prospectors looking for the one real nugget in a river of fool's gold. My knee hurt worse than the humidity, but I told myself it was just adjustment. Vietnam was supposed to be healing. The slow pace, the cheap living, the possibility. I just needed to find my footing. Week 3, I discovered this coffee shop off the beaten path. Locals studying, young people on laptops, nobody trying to sell me anything. Quiet. The kind of place where I could sit for an hour nursing a café soda and not feel like a target. The barista was young, maybe late 20s. Shy smile when she took orders. I came back the next day and the next. By the 4th visit, she remembered my order before I asked. Iced black coffee, no sugar. Her English was halting but sweet. You like no sweet? Most foreigner want very sweet. I'm not gonna lie, it felt good. Being remembered. Being noticed. After a year of being invisible in Cedar Rapids, of sitting alone in my apartment while my kids ignored my calls, here was someone who saw me walk in and smiled like it mattered. Her name was Lynn. Found that out when another customer used it. 28 years old, worked at the coffee shop, studied English at night school. She practiced phrases on me, asked if she was saying things right. Thank you for coming became thank you for come. I'd correct her gently. She'd laugh at herself, try again. We started talking more. Where was I from? What did I do? She knew Iowa, or thought she did. Corn, she'd say, laughing. Many corn in Iowa? I'd tell her about electrical work, about running wire and fixing circuits. She'd listen like it was fascinating instead of boring, ask questions that showed she was actually paying attention. She told me about her family. Rice farm in Quang Nam province, couple hours south. Father died young, mother struggling to keep the farm going, younger brother trying to start a motorbike repair business. She worked here and studied English to make better future, sent most of her money home to help her mother. The moment that got me happened the 6th time I came in. My phone died right when I went to pay through the banking app everyone used. I'm standing there apologizing, saying I'll run to the ATM, come right back. Lynn just laughed. No problem. You pay tomorrow. I trust you. She trusted me. This girl who barely knew me, who I'd exchanged maybe 50 sentences with, trusted me to come back and pay for $1 coffee. After Susan's lawyers had treated me like a criminal, after my own kids wouldn't take my word about anything, here was someone who just believed I'd do the right thing. I came back the next day with payment and a 50,000 dong tip, about $2. She tried to refuse, got flustered, finally accepted. You very kind man, she said. The way she said it, I believed she meant it. Looking back now, I can see the hook being said. The small gesture of trust, the shy gratitude, the way she made me feel seen and appreciated. But sitting there in that coffee shop in February 2023, bad knee aching, bank account heavy with blood money from a failed marriage, all I felt was the first flicker of hope I'd had in years. Maybe Vietnam could be different. Maybe I could be different here. Maybe this girl with the shy smile was exactly what all those YouTube guys had been talking about. I started coming to her coffee shop every single day. The thing about Lynn was how slow she moved. Not physically, she was quit behind that coffee counter, but relationally. She didn't push, didn't angle for anything. That's what made me think she was different. I asked her to dinner after 2 weeks of daily coffee visits. She said no, not rude about it, just, I don't know you enough yet. That floored me. Susan had expectations from day one of our marriage. The bar girls Tony and Frank talked about were aggressive, forward. Here was Lynn turning down a free meal because we weren't ready. Made me respect her more. Took another week before she said yes. We went to a local com tom place, rice with grilled pork, nothing fancy. She insisted on paying for herself. We actually argued about it, her pulling out crumpled dong notes, me trying to wave her off. Finally compromised, I paid for dinner. She bought the café soda after at a street cart. We communicated through broken English and Google Translate, her phone between us on the plastic table. Somehow that felt more honest than the practiced conversations I'd had with Susan for 30 years. With Lynn, there was effort. She'd struggle for a word, I'd wait patiently, she'd find it, or we'd laugh and use the app. No eye-rolling, no exasperation, just two people trying to understand each other. She told me more about her family over those first few dates in February and March. Her father had died when she was 16. Heart attack, she said. Working the rice fields in the heat. Left her mother alone with the farm, Lynn in school, her brother just a kid. They'd struggled. Lynn dropped out of university after 1 year, came to Da Nang to work, sent money home every month. 15 million dong a month, about $600, from her coffee shop salary that probably paid 800 total. Her brother Min was 24 now, trying to start a motorbike repair business in their village. Smart kid, good with machines, but no capital to get proper tools and equipment. Their mother was 58, still working the rice farm alone, her back giving out, hoping to hold on until Min's business succeeded and could support them all. I met Lynn's friends in early March. She brought them to the coffee shop one afternoon, introduced me. Hoa and Tram, both mid-20s, working retail jobs, living in shared apartments, they seemed genuinely nice. Giggled a lot, practiced their English on me, asked about America, about Iowa corn and snow and Walmart. Not the calculating types Frank had warned me about, just normal young women working hard in the developing country. Late March, Lynn set up a video call with her mother. We're sitting on a bench by the beach, late afternoon, and she dials on her phone. Her mother's face appears, weathered and kind, speaking rapid Vietnamese. Lynn translates. Mother asks where I'm from, what I do, am I married? Lynn tells her about my divorce, my kids, my electrical work. Her mother nods slowly, says something that Lynn translates as, life is difficult for everyone. Important to be good person. The financial stuff started so gradually I barely noticed. Dinner dates where I'd insist on paying, maybe 3 times a week, $40 each time. Coffee. I was buying anyway. A taxi ride I'd cover because I had cash and she didn't. Her birthday in early March, I bought her a simple silver bracelet from the market, maybe $80. She cried. Actually cried. Said no one had ever bought her jewelry before. Everything she accepted, she protested first. The birthday bracelet? Too expensive, I cannot take. The dinner bills? We should split, I have money. Even taxi fare, she'd pull out her wallet, I'd have to physically stop her. This wasn't Susan's entitled expectation of provision, this was genuine reluctance that made me feel noble for insisting, By April, we were seeing each other almost daily. I'd come to the coffee shop in the morning for my café denda. She'd smile that shy smile. We'd meet after her shift ended at 6, eat dinner, walk along the beach, sit on those plastic stools drinking biahoy that cost 30 cents a glass. She'd talk about wanting to improve her English, maybe get a better job someday, help her mother retire from the farm work that was destroying her back. I started doing the math in my head. My pension was $1,400 a month. My apartment was $450. I was living on maybe $1,800 total, including food and beer. That left my $95,000 untouched, actually growing slightly with the interest. I could afford to help Lynn's family. Hell, $600 a month to them would be life-changing. Wouldn't even dent my reserves. But I didn't offer, not yet. Something in me, some last vestige of caution, said, wait, make sure this is real first. Then her motorbike broke down. Late April, she mentions casually that her Honda Wave won't start. Probably the carburetor. She's saving money to get it fixed. Without the bike, she's taking motorcycle taxis, spending an hour each way commuting to her mother's place when she visits on days off. I can hear the stress in her voice even through the broken English. Let me look at it, I said. I'm an electrician, not a mechanic, but I know machines. Maybe it's something simple. She was reluctant, always reluctant. No, I cannot ask you to do that. But I pushed, framed it as me wanting to help, me being useful. Finally, she agreed. Her bike was parked behind the coffee shop, beat-up red Honda Wave, plastered with stickers, the seat patched with duct tape. I checked the obvious things: battery connections, spark plug, fuel line. Carburetor was definitely gummed up, but there were other issues too. Brake pads worn thin, chain stretched, tires nearly bald. Took it to a mechanic I found on Google Maps, Vietnamese guy who spoke some English. He quoted 18 million dong for a full service and repairs. I converted it on my phone, about $720. Expensive, probably inflated for the foreigner, but the bike needed the work. Too much, Lynn said when I told her, near tears. I will just save more money, maybe take bus. I'll cover it, I said. Let me do this for you. The protest was immediate and seemingly genuine. No, cannot accept. Too much money. You already so kind to me. We went back and forth. Finally, I said, look, I know machines. This bike is dangerous the way it is. Those brakes could fail. I'd feel terrible if something happened to you. Let me do this. Please. She cried. Right there on the street, tears running down her face, hugging me and saying, thank you, in English and Vietnamese mixed together. The mechanic looked uncomfortable. I felt like a hero. Picked up the bike 3 days later. Lynn came with me, handed the mechanic a bag of fruit as thanks. Vietnamese custom, apparently. We rode back to the coffee shop, her driving, me on the back with my bad knee aching. She was so happy. Kept turning around to smile at me, saying, runs so good now, like new. That evening, she called her mother, had me talk to her through Lynn's translation. Her mother thanked me profusely, said I was taking care of her daughter, said something about how hard life was for single women in Vietnam, how grateful she was that someone respected and helped Lynn. Sitting there on that video call, her mother's worn face looking at me with such genuine appreciation, I felt something click into place. This was what I'd been missing with Susan: being valued, being needed, being the man who solved problems and protected people and made life easier. The comparison started then, even though I didn't want to admit it. Susan complained constantly about money even when we were comfortable. Lynn protested every expense, seemed grateful for things Susan took for granted. Susan rolled her eyes when I explained electrical work. Lynn asked questions, seemed fascinated by circuit diagrams and load calculations. Susan went cold physically, made intimacy feel like obligation. Lynn was affectionate, held my hand walking down the street, leaned against my shoulder on the beach. This is what marriage should have been, I thought. Partnership, appreciation. Someone who saw my value instead of my failures. Looking back now, I can see how perfectly it was calibrated. The reluctance that made me insist. The gratitude that made me feel noble. The slow pace that made it seem authentic. The friends and family that gave it legitimacy. The comparison to Susan that made Lynn seem like the answer to everything that had gone wrong. But I wasn't looking back then. I was looking forward. And forward looked like Lynn's shy smile, her mother's grateful tears, the possibility that maybe I hadn't failed at everything after all. Maybe I just needed to find someone who appreciated what I had to offer. That's what I told myself anyway. and I believed it completely. May started with Lynn's mother getting sick, real sick, or so I thought. Lynn came to my apartment one evening, face puffy from crying, hands shaking as she showed me her phone. Hospital paperwork from Tam Kai, all in Vietnamese. Her mother had stomach problems, needed tests, maybe surgery. The bill was 50 million dong. I pulled up the converter app, $2,000. I don't have this money, Lynn said, wiping her eyes. I try to save, but coffee shop pay not enough. My mother, she suffer. I don't know what to do. She wasn't asking. That's what got me. She was just telling me her problem, same way I'd tell a buddy about a busted water heater. No expectation I'd fix it. But watching her cry, thinking about that weathered woman on the video call who'd thanked me for taking care of her daughter, I couldn't not help. I'll cover it, I said. No, Dale, I cannot. Your mother needs help. I have the money. Let me do this. The protest was fierce. Too much. She couldn't accept. What would she tell her mother? How would she pay me back? I had to practically force my bank details into her hands, insist she transfer the money to the hospital. Finally she did, then collapsed against me, sobbing thank you over and over. 2 days later, her mother sent a video from her hospital bed. Frail, exhausted, speaking Vietnamese while Lynn translated. She say you save her life. She say you good man. She thank Buddha you found Lynn. She say she pray for you every day. I'd just spent $2,000 on a woman I'd never met. Should have felt reckless. Instead, I felt like I'd stepped up the way a man's supposed to. This was family taking care of family. By month 5, we were spending every day together. I'd wake up. She'd already be at my apartment, making Vietnamese coffee on my little stove, trying to cook American breakfast with eggs and toast. We'd laugh at how bad it turned out. Spend the day at the beach, her teaching me Vietnamese words I'd immediately forget, me teaching her about electrical circuits she'd pretend to understand. But she was still working the coffee shop. 6 days a week, split shifts that meant she'd leave at 5 a.m., come back at noon, leave again at 4, return at 9 p.m. We'd only get a few hours together. I could see the exhaustion in her face, the way she'd fall asleep mid-sentence sitting on my balcony. Why don't you quit? I said one evening in late May. I can support us both. My pension covers it. No, I need to work. I cannot depend on you. Lynn, you're exhausted. You're running yourself into the ground. Let me take care of you. That's what partners do. She cried, said she couldn't accept, but I kept pushing. Explained the math. My pension was $1,400 a month. Apartment was $450. We could live comfortably on $2,000 total. I had savings. This wasn't charity. This was building a life together. Finally, she agreed, tears streaming down her face. Only temporary. Until I find better job. I don't want to be burdened. You're not a burden. You make me happy. That's worth everything. She quit the coffee shop the next day. Suddenly, we had all the time in the world. She'd cook Vietnamese food in my tiny kitchen. We'd ride her motorbike to hidden beaches, spend afternoons drinking bia hoi with her friends who'd practice English and ask me about Iowa winters and American football. It felt like what I'd been missing my whole marriage. Susan and I had lived parallel lives in the same house. Lynn and I were actually together, present, building something. Month 6, we moved into a bigger place. My studio was too small for 2 people. Found a nice 1-bedroom in An Thuong, $1,200 a month, twice what I'd been paying, but much nicer. Proper kitchen. AC that worked. Balcony overlooking the street where we could sit and watch the evening motorbike rush. The money was adding up now, $1,200 rent. $600 a month I gave Lynn for personal expenses. She said she needed things like clothes and toiletries, and still sent some to her family. Another $500 I sent directly to her mother every month for the farm, keeping it afloat until Min's business could support them. $2,800 a month, nearly double my pension. Eating into savings, but not by much. I'd spent the motorbike repair, the hospital, 3 months of escalating support, maybe $12,000 total. Still had $83,000 in the bank. This was an investment, I told myself. In our future. In building something real. But things were changing. Small things at first. Lynn started going to her English classes more often. She'd been going twice a week when she worked the coffee shop. Now, it was 4 times a week, sometimes 5. Classes running later, 10 p.m., 11, midnight. Why so late? I asked. Serious students get extra time with teacher. I want to improve my English, maybe get better job later. You understand, yes? I understood. Or, I told myself I did. She was investing in herself. That was good. Admirable, even. But her phone started living face down on tables. Used to be, she'd leave its screen up. I'd see her messages come in, photos from friends, whatever. Now it was always flipped over, and she'd grab it quickly when it buzzed, glance at it, set it back down face first. Who's texting? Just friend. Girl from English class. More time with friends I hadn't met. She'd go out afternoons, come back smelling like cigarettes even though she said she didn't smoke. My friends smoke, she'd explain. I just sit with them. I felt the old Susan paranoia creeping in, questioning, suspecting, looking for problems that weren't there. I hated it. This was what had poisoned my marriage, this inability to trust, this constant checking and monitoring. So I pushed it down. Told myself Vietnamese culture was different. Women here valued their friend groups. The English classes were real. Serious students did study late. I was being controlling like Susan always said. Month 7, July, the real hit came. Lynn got a call from home one evening, spoke rapid Vietnamese, hung up looking devastated, sat down heavily on our couch, face in her hands. What's wrong, my brother? His business is failing. The motorbike repair business Min had been trying to start for 2 years. The whole family's hope. According to Lynn, he'd gotten close, had a few customers, but needed proper equipment to really grow. Without it, he'd lose everything. How much does he need? 200 million dong. Is too much. We cannot help him. I pulled up the converter. $8,000. He will lose shop, Lynn said, crying now. All his work, all his dream. He will have to work factory like everyone else. My mother, she's so sad. This was our hope. She wasn't asking. Again, she wasn't asking. Just crying about her brother's failed dreams, her mother's disappointment, the family's hope dying. I saw myself in Min, 24 years old, trying to start a trade business with no capital. I'd been lucky, had the union apprenticeship, but without that, I could have been Min. Working factory jobs, dreams of something better just out of reach. I'll give him the money. Lynn's head snapped up. No, Dale, no. Is too much. 8,000 isn't that much. I have it. This is family. This is what family does. We invest in each other. I cannot accept. Already you do so much. The hospital, the rent, everything. Lynn, your brother needs this. I can help. Let me help. We went back and forth for an hour. Finally, she agreed, sobbing, saying she'd pay me back. They all would, once the business succeeded. I transferred $8,000 to her account that night. She sent it to Min immediately. Her gratitude was overwhelming. Called her mother, let me talk through translation. Her mother crying, saying I was like a son, that I'd saved their family, that Min would make the business succeed and pay me back double. I sat there feeling like I'd done something meaningful. This was what Susan's family never understood. Partnership means sacrifice. Investing in each other's success. Building something together. Looking back, I can see how the escalation worked. Small amounts first, tested my willingness. Then bigger asks, spaced out enough that each one felt isolated rather than part of a pattern. Always crises I couldn't verify. Always paperwork I couldn't read. Always promises to pay back that never materialized. But I wasn't looking back. I was too busy feeling needed. That's when the warnings got louder. My old buddy Rick from the IBEW video called, saw Lynn in the background when we were talking, asked about her later in a text. Brother, be careful. Seen this pattern before with guys out there. Family emergencies, money for business. Just watch yourself. I got defensive immediately, typed back angry. You don't know her like I do. Not every Vietnamese woman is a scam. This is different. This is real. He didn't respond. I felt justified. These guys didn't understand. They saw one documentary about scams and thought every relationship was fake. Lynn was real. Her gratitude was real. Her family's problems were real. I started avoiding the expat bars. Stopped going to the Facebook groups. Those guys were bitter, cynical, couldn't handle seeing someone actually happy. They just poisoned this with their paranoia. My kids still weren't responding to messages. I'd send photos of Da Nang, of the beach, of me and Lynn at dinner, nothing back. Finally got a message from Ashley in late July. Mom told us what you're doing in Vietnam. Really disappointed, Dad. You abandoned the family to chase girls half your age. Don't contact us for a while. That enraged me. I wasn't chasing girls. I was building a real relationship. I'd found someone who valued me, appreciated me, made me feel like I mattered. Susan had poisoned them against me, made me the villain when all I'd done was try to start over after she destroyed everything. I showed the message to Lynn. She held me while I raged about Susan's manipulation, about my kids taking her side without hearing mine. She told me she understood, that her family appreciated me even if mine didn't, that I was a good man and my children would see it eventually. The financial calculation was getting harder to ignore. Motorbike 800, hospital 2,000, brother's business 8,000. 7 months of increasing support, probably averaging 2,500 a month. I'd spent close to $30,000 in 6 months. My savings were down to 65 grand. Still substantial, still manageable, but the rate of decline was accelerating. I told myself it would stabilize. The emergencies would stop. Means business would succeed, and they'd pay me back like they promised. We'd settle into normal life, just rent and food and beer, totally manageable on pension and savings. I believed it. Had to believe it. Because the alternative meant admitting I'd made another catastrophic mistake. That Jake was right. That I was the stereotype I'd convinced myself I was too smart to become. So I doubled down. Started planning our future. Marriage maybe, next year. Kids. If Lynn wanted, I'd be an old dad. But plenty of guys did it. Permanent life in Vietnam, or maybe split time between here and the States, once my kids forgave me. I was building something. I was needed. I was valued. This was real. All the warning signs I'd spent 30 years learning to recognize in electrical work, I ignored in my relationship. Circuits don't lie. People do. But I'd forgotten how to tell the difference. By September, month 8, I'd run the numbers so many times I had them memorized. Motorbike 800, hospital 2,000, brother's business 8,000. 8 months of escalating support averaging 2,800 a month, that's another 22,000. Miscellaneous gifts, dinners, trips to the beach, maybe 2 grand more, $35,000 in 8 months. My $95,000 nest egg was down to 60 grand. Still substantial. Still manageable. I told myself it was an investment in our future. This was what building a life together looked like. You didn't keep separate accounts and split the check. You pooled resources, supported each other, invested in the family. That's when Lynn brought up the ceremony. We're sitting on the balcony one evening in late August, drinking Bia Ahoy, watching the sunset turn the sky orange over the motorbikes. She's quiet, picking at the label on her beer bottle. What's wrong? I asked. I talked to my mother yesterday. She asked when we have ceremony. What ceremony? In Vietnam, before marriage, family have ceremony, to show commitment, to give face to family and village. Very important for Vietnamese culture. She explained it through broken English and hand gestures. Not a wedding, but a formal acknowledgement of our relationship. I'd meet the extended family, there'd be gifts, traditional payments I didn't fully understand but nodded along to anyway. It would legitimize us in the eyes of her village, show I was serious about her. How much? I asked. She looked embarrassed. Maybe 75 million dong, for gifts, for ceremony, for face, for my family. I know is expensive. We can wait if 3,000 bucks is too much. We wait, maybe next year. But I could hear the disappointment in her voice, could picture her mother asking about the foreign boyfriend, the village gossiping, Lynn feeling ashamed that after 8 months I hadn't made it official. Let's do it, I said. When? Her face lit up. Really? You sure? I'm sure. Your family's been good to me. This is important. Let's do it right. 2 weeks later, we drove to Quang Nam province, her on her Honda Wave, me on the back with my bad knee throbbing a whole hour-and-a-half ride through rice paddies and villages that looked like they hadn't changed in decades. Her family's place was modest. Concrete house, tin roof, chickens in the yard. Her mother came out, same weathered face from the video calls, hugged Lynn, and looked at me with something between gratitude and assessment. Uncles and aunts appeared from everywhere. Cousins, neighbors. Suddenly, there were 30 people in that small house, all talking rapid Vietnamese, looking at the big American with the bad knee. The ceremony itself was a blur. Incense, prayers, formal exchanges I didn't understand. I handed over envelopes of cash at specific moments Lynn had rehearsed with me, smiled when people smiled at me, bowed when people bowed. Ate food I couldn't identify off plates people kept filling. Some of the relatives seemed genuinely warm. Others gave me looks I couldn't quite read. Skepticism, maybe, or pity. One uncle, drunk on rice wine, kept asking questions through Lynn's translation. How long would I stay in Vietnam? What were my intentions? Why wasn't I with my own family? Tell him I'm building a new family, I said. That's what I'm doing here. $3,000 plus the gifts and the special dinner I insisted on hosting at a restaurant in Tam Kai. Call it $3,500 total. Worth it to see Lynn's mother crying happy tears, to hear the village women saying I was generous, to feel like I'd done something meaningful according to someone's traditions, even if they weren't mine. But that's when my knee really started going bad. The humidity had been aggravating it since January, but by September it was legitimately failing. Some mornings I couldn't put weight on it. The stairs to our apartment became torture. I'd grip the railing, haul myself up one step at a time, Lynn watching with increasing impatience. You need to see doctor, she'd say. It'll get better, just needs rest. But it didn't get better. The old injury from the electrical work, compounded by Vietnam's wet heat and all the walking and motorbike riding, was catching up. I'd wake up at night with it throbbing, take ibuprofen that barely helped, lie there calculating how much longer I could function like this. Lynn was attentive at first, would massage it, help me up from chairs, adjust plans if I was having a bad day. But I noticed the shift, the slight annoyance when I couldn't keep up on walks. The way she'd mention how young her friends' boyfriends were, how active. Little comments about me getting old. And the English classes were now 4 nights a week, sometimes not coming home until 1 or 2 a.m. Why so late? I asked one night when she came in after tea. Study group. We practiced together after class. Every night? Not every night. You count how many nights I go. You check on me? She made me feel guilty for asking. Like I was being the controlling husband Susan accused me of being. So I'd apologize, say I was just worried, not checking up on her. She'd soften, kiss my forehead, tell me not to worry so much. Jake visited in October, month 9. Jake Morrison, buddy from Cedar Rapids, divorced same time as me, one of the few guys who still talked to me after I moved. He'd been planning a Southeast Asia trip, decided to stop in Da Nang to check on me. Met him at the airport, hadn't seen him in almost a year. He looked good, tanned from some beach in Thailand, relaxed, 10 pounds lighter than I remembered. We hugged, drove back to my apartment in a grab, caught up on Cedar Rapids gossip I didn't really care about anymore. Lynn was home when we got there. I'd told her Jake was coming. She'd seemed fine with it. Cooked a nice Vietnamese dinner, practiced her English, smiled and laughed at Jake's stories. Seemed perfect. But the next day, Jake wanted to grab beers without her. Just us guys, catch up properly. We went to one of the expat bars on Bok Dang, ordered tigers, sat on the balcony watching the Han River. That's when he said it. Brother, I gotta be straight with you. You being played. I felt my jaw tighten. What are you talking about? The late nights. The family emergencies needing money. The way she's with you versus how she was at dinner when she thought I wasn't paying attention. This is textbook. I've seen 3 guys lose everything to this exact pattern. You don't know her. You met her for one dinner. Dale, listen to yourself. She quit her job, you're supporting her and her whole family. She's out till 2 a.m., 4 nights a week at English class. Come on. Vietnamese culture is different. Women need friend time. English education is serious here. You wouldn't understand because you don't live here. I lived in Thailand for 6 months, seen this same show with different actresses. The sick mother, the brother's failing business, all of it. My hands were shaking. You're bitter. Like Susan. Can't handle that I'm actually happy for once. Happy? You look miserable, man. Your knee's shot, you've lost weight, you're drinking more than you did in Iowa, and she's bleeding you dry. I stood up. Fuck you, Jake. You fly out here for 2 days and think you know everything. You don't know what we have. You don't know her. When this falls apart, he said quietly, call me. I'll be there. I left cash for the beers and limped out. Didn't talk to him the rest of his visit. He texted a few times. I ignored them. He flew to Cambodia or wherever the next day, sent one final message. Brother, I hope I'm wrong, but watch your money, please. I blocked his number. Told Lynn about the conversation that night. She held me while I ranted about jealous friends who couldn't stand seeing me build something real. She said Jake was like many Western men, bitter and unable to understand Vietnamese family values. He probably hurt by his divorce, she said. Cannot see love anymore, only see bad thing, feel sorry for him. That made me feel better, justified. I'd cut off the toxic influences, the people trying to poison what Lynn and I had with their cynicism. Looking back, that was the moment I burned my last bridge home. October brought another crisis. Lynn's brother. His business was struggling despite the $8,000 I'd given him. Now he needed equipment, a proper lift for the shop, tools he couldn't afford. Another $5,000 or the whole thing would collapse. My savings were down to 52 grand. The monthly burn rate hadn't stabilized like I'd hoped. Rent, Lynn's allowance, her family's support. It was still running $2,800 a month, plus whatever emergencies came up. I was starting to feel it. The financial pressure, the sense that maybe this wasn't sustainable. But I couldn't back out now. That would mean admitting Jake was right. Admitting I'd been fooled again, worse than with Susan, because this time I'd actively chosen it. I'd defended Lynn to everyone who questioned, cut off people who warned me, invested $43,000 into this relationship. Retreat meant total catastrophic failure of judgment. So I transferred the $5,000, told myself this was the last emergency. After this, we'd stabilize. Means business would succeed. They'd pay me back like they promised. Everything would level out. Lynn was grateful. Cried. Promised this was it. No more problems. Her family was so thankful. I was the best man she'd ever known. But things kept changing. She was less affectionate now. We'd go days without being intimate. And when we were, she seemed to be going through motions. Would check her phone during or right after, texting in Vietnamese while I lay there wondering what was wrong. Everything okay? I'd ask. Yes, fine. Just friend. Her phone had a password now. Used to leave it unlocked. I could grab it to check the time or look something up. Now it was locked, and when I mentioned it, she got defensive. Privacy important. You should respect, not like you checking on me, yes? Made me feel like I was being controlling like Susan always said, so I backed off. Told myself couples needed boundaries. Privacy was healthy. I was being paranoid because of my broken marriage, projecting my issues onto Lynn. One night in late November, I couldn't sleep, knee pain keeping me up. Lynn was in the shower at 2 a.m. after coming home from another late English class. Her phone was on the nightstand, buzzing with messages. I hated myself for it, but I reached for it. Locked. Tried her birthday as the password. Nope. Tried mine. Nope. When she came out, I asked casually, "Hey, why'd you password protect your phone? Why you try to open my phone?" I wasn't trying to open it. I just noticed it's locked now when it wasn't before. Privacy important. You should respect, not try to check on me like I am child. I'm not checking on you. I'm just asking why the change. She looked at me with something like contempt. You become like American husband, always suspicious, always checking, cannot trust. This is why your wife leave you, yes? That hit like a punch. I apologized immediately, said she was right. I was being paranoid. It was my issues, not hers. She softened a bit, said she understood. My past made trust hard, but I needed to work on it. Lying there after she fell asleep, I knew something was wrong. My electrician's troubleshooting brain was screaming at me. Voltage drop somewhere. Burnt connection. Faulty wire. The whole circuit was failing, and I could smell the smoke, but I was convincing myself it was dust on the heating element. The cracks weren't just visible now, they were structural. But I was in too deep. $43,000 invested. Bridges burned. Pride on the line. Everyone I knew had warned me, and I'd cut them off to prove them wrong. So I did what made no sense but felt necessary. I doubled down. Ordered an engagement ring from the States. $3 grand for something nice enough to show I was serious. Planned to propose at Christmas, make it official, turn this relationship into marriage and shut down all the doubts, mine and hers. If I could just get to marriage, I told myself, everything would stabilize. She'd have the security she needed. The emergencies would stop. We'd build a real life together. I ignored every lesson I'd learned in 30 years of electrical work. When you smell smoke, there's fire. When voltage drops, check connections. When a circuit fails, trace it back to the source. Instead, I kept sending current through faulty wire, convinced the insulation would hold, right up until the moment everything burned down. December started with my knee giving out completely. Not just aching, not just stiff in the mornings. Failing. I woke up one day and couldn't put weight on it at all. Had to call Lynn to help me to the bathroom. The look on her face wasn't concern, it was annoyance. "You too old for Vietnam," she said. "Need to see doctor. Cannot walk like this." Got a referral to an orthopedic specialist at Family Medical Practice, the international clinic in Da Nang. Foreign doctors, real equipment, prices to match. The specialist was Australian, maybe 40. Looked at my knee for about 30 seconds and said I needed arthroscopic surgery. Minor procedure. Clean out the debris. Reduce inflammation. Outpatient. Scheduled it for December 10th. Wednesday. Lynn's the English class day, but she promised to cancel, be there when I got home. The procedure was fine. General sedation. Went under counting backward from 10. Woke up groggy in recovery with a nurse speaking broken English telling me to rest, no stairs, no activity for 48 hours. Gave me pain meds, discharge papers, called me a grab. Got home around 2 p.m. The apartment was on the 3rd floor, no elevator. Took me 10 minutes to climb those stairs, knee screaming despite the drugs, holding the railing with both hands and hauling myself up one step at a time. Unlocked the door quietly, just wanted to lie down. That's when I heard it. My electrician brain kicked in before the emotion did. Analyzing. Male voice speaking Vietnamese. Low, urgent. Sound of movement from the bedroom. A motorcycle parked outside I didn't recognize. Men's shoes by the door, not mine. The troubleshooting sequence ran automatically. Check the circuit. Trace the fault. Verify the connection. I opened the bedroom door. Vietnamese man, mid-30s, good-looking, hurriedly pulling on jeans. Lynn in the bed, sheet clutched to her chest, hair messed up, no panic on her face, no shame. Just annoyance. Like I'd come home at the wrong time and disrupted her schedule. The man pushed past me, muttering something in Vietnamese. I couldn't have stopped him if I wanted to. Could barely stand on the bad knee. Front door opened and closed. Motorbike engine starting outside, driving away. I stood there in the bedroom doorway. The engagement ring I'd ordered was in my jacket pocket, $3,000. Sitting right there while my fiancée got dressed, still no shame on her face, just irritation. Who was that? My voice sounded flat, Midwestern practical. Just asking for information. Boyfriend. She said it like she was telling me the weather, from Saigon. Boyfriend. Yes, we together 3 years, never break up. The circuit diagram of my failure was completing itself in my head. All the connections making sense now. The late nights, the password-protected phone, the decreasing affection. All of it. You think I love you? She was getting dressed now, pulling on jeans, finding her shirt. You think I love old foreign man with bad knee? I thought, this is business. Her English was suddenly much better than she'd ever let on. You give money, I give time. Transaction. Very simple. My world was collapsing, but I kept asking questions, needed the full damage report, had to understand every failed connection. How long? From beginning. I tell you, we never break up. He, my real boyfriend. You just sponsor. The money I gave you. Go to him, to me, to my family. You very generous ATM. Your mother's hospital. She not sick. We plan it. Paperwork easy to make. You cannot read Vietnamese. Your brother's business. There is no business. My brother work in factory. Always work in factory. The English classes, meeting him. Sometimes other foreigners also, if they pay good price. You not only sponsor Dale. Just the one right now who pay most. She was scrolling through her phone now, showing me. Group chats with other girls, all in English. I could understand perfectly. Comparing their customers. Sharing strategies for maximizing money. Always cry when asking. Make them think it their idea. Never directly ask. Voice messages. Girls laughing. I caught fragments. The American one so stupid. Mine explains electrical work like anyone cares. The old one with bad knee, so desperate. Lynn's voice in one recording. He believe everything, so easy. Just mention family, and he open wallet. Then messages with her boyfriend. Photos of a new motorbike, expensive clothes, nights out at clubs I'd never been to, all bought with my money. Plans for their future together once they saved enough from her foreign sponsors. One message from 3 weeks ago, right after I gave her $5,000 for men's equipment. Lynn to boyfriend. Another success. The old American so easy. He actually think we marry. Order ring from America. I did the math standing there, the electrician in me calculating load, resistance, total draw on the system. Motorbike 800. Hospital. That was never a hospital, 2,000. Brother's business, that was never a business, 13,000 in 2 payments. Commitment ceremony, 3,000. 9 months of rent and support averaging 2,800 a month, 25,200. Gifts, dinners, miscellaneous, another 3,000. $47,000. Half my nest egg. Gone. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why not just keep lying? She looked at me like I was stupid. You saw. No point pretending now. You leave apartment now. I find new sponsor easy. Many lonely foreign men in Deepening. Always more coming. The transactional clarity was almost worse than the betrayal. I wasn't even special enough to warrant better lies. The minimum necessary deception had been sufficient. I'd been that easy. She started packing. Most of her stuff was already gone, I realized. This apartment had been for appearances. Her real life was in Saigon with him. I come back tomorrow for rest of things. You be gone, yes? No drama. We finish. She left. Walked out like she was leaving a job, not a relationship. Because that's what it was. She'd clocked out. I sat on the couch, knee throbbing through the pain meds, engagement ring still in my jacket pocket, doing what I'd done for 30 years, troubleshooting, tracing back through every connection to find where the failure started. But I knew where it started. It started with me getting on that plane in Chicago. Started with me running from one failed relationship straight into another without fixing the actual problem. Started with me being so desperate for validation that I'd ignored every warning sign, cut off every person who cared about me, and convinced myself that this time would be different. The smoke I'd been smelling for months, the voltage drop I'd been rationalizing, the burnt connections I'd been explaining away as cultural differences. I'd spent 30 years learning that when you smell smoke, there's fire. When circuits fail, you check connections. When voltage drops, you trace it back to source. And I'd ignored every single lesson because I wanted so badly to believe that someone valued me. The engagement ring was still in my pocket. $3,000. I took it out, looked at it, put it back. Outside, the evening motorbike rush was starting. The city carrying on like my world hadn't just collapsed. Somewhere in Saigon, Lynn was probably already with him, laughing about the old American with the bad knee who'd funded their future together. My phone buzzed. Jake. I'd unblocked his number after ignoring it for weeks. His message, "You doing okay, brother?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I called him. The week after Lynn left, blurs together. Stayed in that $1,200 apartment drinking Saigon Red, knee healing slowly. Replaying every moment, looking for the signs I'd missed. But the signs were all there. I'd just chosen the interpretation that let me keep believing. Every time her story changed about her father's death. Every late night with explanations that got thinner. Every password and face-down phone. The decreasing affection. The way her English got better when she was angry. Cultural differences. That's what I'd told myself. Vietnamese women value privacy. Extended families have complex needs. I was being paranoid, damaged by Susan, projecting my broken marriage onto an innocent relationship. Every rationalization was evidence of desperation, not wisdom. Jake stayed on the phone that first night for 2 hours. Didn't say I told you so. Just listened while I talked through the whole thing, start to finish, $47,000 of failure. "I'm sorry, brother," he said. "Wanted to be wrong." "You weren't. What are you gonna do?" "Good question." Couldn't afford the apartment anymore. Not on 48 grand and a reduced pension. Couldn't face the Da Nang expat scene, everyone probably knowing some version of my story by now. Couldn't go back to Cedar Rapids yet. Lynn came back 3 days later with 2 friends, collected her remaining things like she was moving out of a rental. Didn't look at me, didn't speak. Left the key on the counter and walked out. The apartment felt enormous after. Empty in a way that had nothing to do with furniture. Moved to Hoi An. A week later. Cheaper. $400 a month for a studio in the old town. Away from Da Nang's expat bars and coffee shops where I might run into Lynn or her friends or guys like Tony and Frank who'd warned me and been right. Hoi An's got this ancient town tourist charm that felt mockingly romantic. Lanterns everywhere, couples taking photos, the whole place designed for people in love. I was 51, alone again, sitting on the ruins of another catastrophic failure of judgment. My knee healed, my pride didn't. I'd checked my bank account obsessively those first weeks. 48,000 left from 95. Plus pension, 1,400 a month. Could survive in Vietnam for 5 years on this if I was careful. 2 years back in Iowa. The money felt contaminated now. Every dollar a reminder of how easily I'd been fooled. Tried reconnecting with people back home. Ashley and Brandon hadn't responded to messages in months. Finally got a reply from Ashley in late December. "Mom told us what you're doing in Vietnam. Really disappointed, Dad. Chasing girls half your age while we needed you here. Don't contact us for a while." I tried explaining. Wrote 3 drafts of a message about how it wasn't like that. How I'd been building what I thought was a real relationship. How I'd been scammed. Then I realized it absolutely was like that. Didn't matter what I thought I was doing. The outcome was the same. I'd run to Vietnam chasing validation from a younger woman instead of doing the hard work of fixing myself. Jake kept in touch. Suggested I come back to Cedar Rapids, but I couldn't face it yet. Everyone would know. Divorced guy runs to Asia, gets cleaned out by a girl half his age, comes home broke and broken. The stereotype I'd convinced myself I was too smart to become. I started rewatching those YouTube videos with different eyes. Same channels that got me on the plane in the first place, saw the same patterns. The same rationalizations. The same desperate men looking for easy answers. Joined online forums for scammed expats. Hundreds of stories. Some guys lost more, 100 grand plus. Some lost less. But the emotional pattern was identical every time. Loneliness, hope, rationalization, devastation. The common denominator wasn't Vietnamese women being uniquely deceptive. It was lonely foreign men being uniquely vulnerable, bringing baggage and desperation that made us easy marks. I spent days analyzing the whole thing like electrical diagrams. Every crisis perfectly timed. Every emotion precisely calibrated. The escalation methodical. Lynn was good at her job. The perfect amount of resistance to make me feel noble. Enough authenticity to seem real. Strategic vulnerability that triggered all my protector instincts. And the comparison to Susan, that was the masterpiece. Susan's real complaints about my emotional unavailability became Lynn's fake appreciation for my stoicism. Susan's legitimate needs became Lynn's manufactured gratitude. The insight that hit hardest came around January, month 12 of being in Vietnam. Susan's complaints about me being emotionally unavailable were probably legitimate. I'd thrown myself into work to avoid intimacy. Used beer and sports to fill the silence. Never learned to actually talk about feelings. Lynn didn't want that from me either, just wanted money, which made her easier to be with. No demands for emotional presence, just financial provision. Neither relationship failed because of cultural differences. Both failed because I'd never learned to be genuinely present. The comparison I'd obsessed over, American wife versus Vietnamese girlfriend, was always false. Susan was a real person whose needs I ignored until she left. Lynn was a professional whose job I paid for until I caught on. Neither relationship was authentic because I wasn't authentic in either. Started seeing a therapist via Zoom in February. Expensive but necessary. Twice a week, $100 a session. Working through the divorce, the Vietnam disaster, the patterns I kept repeating. Stopped drinking daily. Started going to the gym for knee rehab and mental health. The knee would never be right, but it got functional again. My savings would last if I was careful. Maybe 5 years in Vietnam, 2 in Iowa. Haven't decided where home is anymore. Sent a message to Ashley and Brandon in March. Didn't defend myself. Didn't explain. Just apologized for being absent even when I was physically present. For running to Vietnam instead of doing the hard work of being their father. For prioritizing my need for validation over their need for a dad. Ashley responded neutral. Thanks for saying that. Need more time. Brandon hasn't responded yet. It's something. The lesson crystallized through that electrician's lens I've used my whole life. Spent 30 years learning that if you smell smoke, there's fire. Learn to test circuits, verify connections, never assume anything's safe just because it looks good. Somehow forgot all that in Vietnam. The warning signs in relationships work the same as electrical work. Ignore them and you get burned. Test your assumptions. Verify what you think you know. Don't convince yourself the burning smell is just dust on the heating element. Difference is, Susan took half of everything in the divorce. Lynn just took what I voluntarily gave her. What I threw at her trying to buy validation and purpose. Cost me the same amount either way. About $47,000. But Susan, I can be angry at. Susan's lawyer was ruthless, but honest about what she wanted. Lynn smiled and cried, and made me feel like a hero while systematically draining my savings. That's on me. The real comparison isn't American wife versus Vietnamese wife. It's real relationship versus transaction disguised as relationship. I wasn't ready for a real relationship with Susan. Too closed off, too focused on work, couldn't communicate. Thought Vietnam would be easier because different culture, grateful woman, fresh start. But there's no easy version of intimacy. You either show up authentic or you get what I got. Someone willing to perform affection in exchange for money until the performance isn't necessary anymore. If you're watching this thinking about coming to Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, wherever, fix yourself first. Go to therapy. Learn to be alone without being lonely. Deal with your divorce, your career disappointment, your kids not calling, whatever broke you. Because if you run here broken looking for someone to fix you, you're not finding love. You're finding very patient professionals who will happily take your money while you confuse transaction for transformation. I'm still here in Hoi An, still working on myself, still figuring out what comes next. The money will recover. The relationship with my kids might recover. The harder work is learning to be genuinely present, to offer real intimacy instead of just financial provision. That's a lifetime project. But at least now I know what the actual problem is. Dale's story isn't unique to Vietnam. You'll find versions of it anywhere lonely. People seek easy answers to hard problems. But Vietnam's particular combination of affordability, cultural difference, and large age gap acceptance creates perfect conditions for these transactions. The women involved aren't villains. They're often supporting families, navigating survival in a developing economy, using available resources. The tragedy is mutual. Foreign men mistake transaction for love. Vietnamese women mistake customers for partners. Both parties trade authenticity for convenience until the bill comes due. Dale's doing better now. Still in Vietnam, still healing, more honest with himself than he's been in decades. His kids are slowly responding. His savings will recover. The harder work, learning to be genuinely present, to offer real intimacy instead of just financial provision, that's a lifetime project. If you found this story valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to Inside Vietnam. Share it with anyone who might benefit from Dale's hard-won wisdom. We tell these stories not to shame anyone, but to illuminate patterns that ruin lives. Sometimes the best way to avoid a mistake is hearing someone else confess it first. Until next time, stay sharp, stay humble, and remember, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. This is Inside Vietnam.